Hi, hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. I decided to start this because I'm self-aware enough to realize that I'm yapping too much on TikTok, okay? My videos get too long, I have too much to say, and there's a time and a place. Time and place. Here I am with my cheap Amazon light and my cheap Amazon microphone that I don't think even does anything, but we're here. Sitting on my floor, if you even saw the wreckage on the other side of this camera right now, you'd be concerned for me. I've tried to film this a million times also, and this is like so weird. I'm just not used to this. Don't stalk my YouTube channel, by the way, okay? My middle school singing videos, none of my fucking business, okay? Don't talk about it. Sorry, I thought I saw a ghost. 17 books this month. That's a lot. I read 4 different genres. Well, 3. I read a lot of contemporary romance, including romance. I had a phase this month. Fantasy romance, and thriller books. I read a few thrillers this month. I had a very fun time with thrillers. I love thrillers, okay? It feels like getting back to my roots, in a way. So we're gonna go by genre, because, I don't know, I want to. I'm really good at this, as you can tell. And if this looks embarrassing, I want you to know I feel even more embarrassed than I look. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Why didn't anybody smack me over the side of the head and tell me to read this sooner? 5 stars. Easy. Finished it in a day. I'm going to give a plot summary. I try to do this spoiler free, but everybody always tells me that I give spoilers anyways. So view at your own risk. But also, these are romance books, so it's like, how many endings can we truly dream up? So Part of Your World, we have Daniel. He's our blue collar man who I need desperately. And Alexis, who is a big city hotshot doctor, part of this like family dynasty of doctors. So they're very different. Daniel's 28, Alexis is like 35, so it's kind of like a reverse age gap situation. And Alexis is basically driving home from a funeral one day. Her car lands in a ditch. And of course, just the sexiest and most wonderful man alive comes to help pull her out of that ditch. That's where our story starts. Kind of starts as a situationship to lovers type thing. Alexis is getting out of a relationship with a piece of shit who her family really wants her to be with still, who like cheated on her and did all this awful stuff. And she's like, guys, okay, no. Daniel is basically like her place of reprieve. So she like goes and visits him a ton. They fall in love. You know. I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but take a wild fucking guess. Here's what I loved about this book. I need a blue collar man more than I need to breathe. Yeah. I seriously considered going and putting my car in a fucking ditch on the side of the road in hopes that I will be rescued by a blue collar man. Let's talk spice, because I feel like that's, people always want to know about that. I always want to know about that. Spice, I would give this maybe 2 out of 5 on the spice scale. And by that I mean like there was maybe 1 or 2 explicit scenes, but not really, and more fade to black than anything. So these are not super spicy books. I think Emily Henry is spicier than Abby Jimenez. That's what I'll say. If that's what you're looking for in your contemporary romance books, she's probably not the one for you, but oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. Everything about it was good. And I hope that doesn't like steer anyone away, because I absolutely loved this book. And I really only read it as a means to an end, because I've owned the second book, Yours Truly, which we will talk about right now. I've owned this book for like months, and everyone was like, well, you should read the first one, because they're interconnected standalones. Like that, yes, they can be read alone, but I'm very glad that I read Part of Your World before going into this. This book is about Alexis's best friend, okay, who we get to know in Part of Your World and who I loved in Part of Your World. This is about Bree and Jacob. Jacob is a new doctor at the hospital Bree works at. Bree is getting out of a very messy marriage where her husband had an affair with another woman for like years, and she had just found out. Jacob is getting out of a relationship with a woman who is now engaged to his younger brother. I'm like, y'all are messy. Messy. Bree is very like, badass, fuck you, fuck men. I want nothing to do with men for the rest of my life. Jacob is very like, sweet and golden retriever-esque. What I loved the most about this story is Jacob has really severe social anxiety, okay? When I tell you that I felt really called out in this book, I can say this because who the fuck knows who's going to watch this video, right? I have OCD. I have the type of OCD, though, that is not like the stereotypical type of OCD, like the type you'd think of when someone says they have OCD. Like, again, if you saw the other half of my room right now, you would lock me away. I have the type of OCD where my intrusive thoughts have everything to do with like social interactions and my relationships, and my compulsions also have to do with that. What I appreciated about Jacob is like the thought process he's going through before every single hangout. I was like, dude, oh man, that hurts. That hurts. But I think it was a really beautiful representation for a lot of reasons. One, I feel like it's really realistic. Two, I feel like even if you don't have severe social anxiety, there were aspects of his anxiety that a lot of people could relate to. And three, it didn't take away from his masculinity as a character. And I think that that's something that's really prevalent in obviously today's day and age of like men not being able to express their feelings, the male loneliness epidemic. Sorry. This was just done so beautifully, and just you just really got to see both of their humanness, which is my favorite part about reading. And I just loved their story. It was so wholesome. It was so beautiful. It was so engaging. Again, and this might be a little spoiler, if you are really like hate a third act breakup, you're not gonna like either of these books because they both have them. And this is a controversial opinion that I have. I believe that a third act breakup is necessary sometimes. Because if everything's just happy days, I'm bored. And I do feel like more in Yours Truly versus Part of Your World, the third act breakup was integral to the story and was integral to the character development of Bree. This I would give the same spice as Part of Your World. It is, there's maybe one scene that's explicit and the rest is very like fade to black, but again, sex is talked about pretty openly. 5 stars, 6 stars. I absolutely loved both of those books. Okay, last contemporary romance physical book. I picked this up from the Ripped Bodice in Culver City. I just needed something like easy to read before bed, because when I try to read these big fantasy novels, because I read so many this month before bed, I'm brain dead. I don't know what's happening. It's like, I'm looking for a brain rot something. Okay, so I picked this up. I did not love this book. I even say the title. It's The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. It is about a woman who is trying to finish her education, and to pay for it, she used to do OnlyFans. And you learn that she basically had this client that she did OnlyFans with, where the relationship was kind of taken a little further. Like, they actually had like a relationship brewing and they were actually going to meet up in person. And then that didn't happen. There was a huge miscommunication trope. And she like deletes her OnlyFans because she's so devastated by it. Only to find out that the sexy new father that she is nannying for is the man that she was talking to on OnlyFans. It's like a very cliche nanny, like single dad story, to be honest with you. I think the OnlyFans element was interesting. Could have done without it, but it is what makes this book different from all the others. I just didn't love this book. It was very spicy, okay? That's what you're looking for if you're looking for a book that's kind of like brain rot, mostly spice, and you love a single dad. You might like this book. I just didn't. Okay, the rest I read on my Kindle because I got a Kindle for Christmas and I've become like an iPad kid with my Kindle. So I read 2 books and 1 novella by Elle Kennedy and Sarina Bowen. It's like the Him series. The book is literally called Him. It's about 2 hockey players, like big masculine, I don't know, stereotypical hockey players. They grew up going to the same hockey training summer camp. And we learn at the beginning that something happened at that summer camp that kind of ruined their friendship in a way, and that they haven't talked in a few years, and they're reconnecting when they're in college again. So one of them is openly gay, the other is like questioning. So there's a lot of sexuality exploration in this book. It's very like friends to lovers, and just dealt with a lot of complex themes about being queer, which I really appreciated. That's kind of the first book. The second book, they're together. I hope that's not like a spoiler. And then there's just a bunch of conflict things that happen. And that's kind of the same as the novella as well. So book 1 is Him, book 2 is Us, and then Epic is the novella. Elle Kennedy's kind of the queen of hockey romances for me. Okay, whether it's straight or gay, I don't care. Give me them all. I will read them all. I already read in this like universe before too. The main character's sister has her own book and like a separate series that Elle Kennedy and Sarina Bowen did. I did not like that book very much, but I loved this one. One of my goals this year was to read more queer romances. This was a very fun place to start, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Top Secret, also by Elle Kennedy and Sarina Bowen. I thought this was such a fun concept. It is about two frat brothers who live next door to each other and are competing to be frat president. One of them is basically a shoo-in, like his dad was president, everyone in the frat house loves him. The other one's a little bit more like standoffish, and he's kind of only just doing it so he can have the free housing. The guy who's like a shoo-in, he has a girlfriend, and basically the whole plot of this book is the girlfriend wants to have a threesome with another dude, and she's like, you can find the dude. So he's going on all these apps looking for a third, and he meets this guy, anonymously, obviously, they don't show their faces, and they just really hit it off. It kind of starts mostly sexually because he's kind of exploring his own sexuality in this whole thing, and then it kind of develops into this friendship relationship. Him and his girlfriend break up, she breaks up with him, and then he finds out that the guy that he was talking to is the guy who lives next door to him that he hates. So it's very enemies to lovers. It's like kind of like forbidden romance as well, because they're roommates and they're like, we really should not be doing this and people cannot find out about this. It covers a lot of complex themes about queerness, about money, about family dynamics and parental dynamics. I think I liked him better than I liked this one, but I still loved this one. I gave this one 4 stars. Another romance, because as we can tell, I went through a massive phase this month, and the phase isn't really over, to be honest with you. It's Seth and Caleb's fault, but we'll get to that. Heated Rivalry by Reid. I enjoyed this book. It is told from the third person, which I normally don't mind, but I feel like in this book, it felt very detached. So this is about 2 professional hockey players, and they're known as being like rivals. Like in all of the sports worlds, they're rivals. We basically find out that they've been hooking up for like years behind the scenes, and it's only ever been that because they're from different countries, I think. So they only would hook up like in secret when they were playing each other or something. One of these guys bought a whole ass building to hide this affair that was happening. It was crazy. I thought that was crazy. This was just a really fun read. Very, very spice heavy. Okay, I would give this like 3 or 4 out of 5 on the spice scale. But I do think that the spice was integral to the plot, if that makes sense. Because a lot of it had to do with one of the characters, again, like exploring their sexuality. In that way, I feel like it was necessary, but man, it was a lot. Okay. Woo. So if you're not looking for a spice-heavy book, or if that's something that you really don't vibe with, I would not recommend this book. But it was a really touching story. I was actually like crying by the end of it, even though I felt really detached at the beginning. Okay. Whew. And the next one's a doozy. Okay. She's a big one. Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I finally read Binding 13. This was one of my highly anticipated reads of the year as well. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I loved it. Sorry, I just went totally brain dead. I loved this book. One of my favorite girls on TikTok, she recommended it to me and she's like, you are gonna love this. And so I was like, well, fine. I was like doing it during my Iron Flame reread, which we will get to. And I was just like, oh, you know, it's a long book, so I'm just gonna kind of break it up. I'll probably read it over the course of the next like month and a half. No. I read it in like 2 days. This is a YA book. Okay, so again, if you're looking for spice, you're not going to find it here. I loved this book. I can see why people didn't. I talked about this in my review on my TikTok. Well, let me give a plot summary first. Okay, so we have Shannon is our FMC. She is transferring to a new school, a private school that she got enrolled in because we learned that she has a history of serious bullying. Her parents, well, her mom is hoping that by putting her in this new school, that things will get better. Shannon is like, I think she's underdeveloped, like actually medically, just because of the constant stress that she was under. So she's like a very small girl. Like this was very much like she's gonna blow away in the wind, okay, type situation. They are high schoolers, so she's 15, I believe, when this book starts. And she meets Johnny Kavanaugh, who is our who's our MMC. He is a rugby player. He's like the rugby player, like hot shot. He's 2 years older than her. All the girls love him. He's like I think he already is like pro. I don't know, this takes place in Ireland, okay? Johnny hits her in the face with the ball, okay? And when he does that, he becomes obsessed with her. So here's what I loved about this book, okay? It's been so long since I've read about a man who just yearns, okay? Yearns for a woman. He is obsessed with her from the get. He can't stop thinking about her. He doesn't even know why. I loved it, okay? Bring back male yearning, okay? So I loved Johnny. I loved Joey. Oh, Joey is Shannon's brother. I'm obsessed with him. I would die for him. I also just loved, like, the puppy love in this book. Like, it totally felt like high school love in the sense that it was just immature and, like, so over the top, but, like, I mean that in a positive way. Like, it was very fun to read about, for sure. What I will say about this book, you definitely want to check your trigger warnings. There are very heavy themes in this book of abuse, domestic abuse specifically, and just complicated family dynamics. And if that's something that's triggering for you, I would not recommend this book. I thought it was a really beautiful story. I typically stray away from books about high school kids for the most part because I'm like, I'm better than you. I'm 23. Stupid. But I really enjoyed this. I really did. So I gave that 5 stars. We're going to do thrillers really quick because I only read 2 thrillers this month and I just want to get them out of the way. I read The It Girl by Ruth Ware. I read this in a day. It was very fast paced. I really enjoyed it. This is about a college friend group. There's a murder of, like, the It Girl in the college friend group, and it's being told from the third person perspective of her best friend from college. And you find out, 1, that she's, like, dating the murder girl's ex. Well, I think they're married, actually. And 2, that the guy who got acquitted for the murder died in prison, and he died, like, protesting his innocence. That's where our story starts. It goes back and forth in time to, like, leading up to the murder in college, and, like, present tense, the girl's best friend kind of unraveling what was really going on with the murder and realizing that, like, the man that she put behind bars might not be the man who did that to her best friend. I love a college friend group, or just a friend group in general, thriller, okay? Because there's always scandal, there's always drama. I live for it. It's, like, one of my favorite micro tropes. I don't know if that's the right word in books like this. This plot twist was, like, decent. It was fine. What I appreciated about this book, and it's, like, my biggest criteria for a good thriller, is I need to be entertained all the way through. Okay, so, like, The Only One Left by Riley Sager is a very popular thriller book, and I think it has one of, if not the best plot twists in a thriller that I've ever read. But I was bored for, like, most of it. But anyway, I did really enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read The Silence by Kendra Elliot. I'm going to give you a plot summary because the plot sounds really interesting, but I promise you it was, like, the most boring book I've ever read, and I was, like, pulling teeth trying to get through it, and it was only, like, 200 pages. This book is about the death of a conspiracy theorist. It's being told from the perspectives of a female FBI agent and then, like, a male detective who are, like, engaged to be married. So this conspiracy theorist, who basically is, like, anti-police, you know, the government is trying to kill us type of conspiracy theorist, gets murdered. And as they're investigating his murder, like, in his house, they find these plans to, like, bomb a courthouse. And they show up at the courthouse, and it's a big shootout. Like, they learn it was, like, a trap, all this stuff. So it's, like, it sounds really interesting. And the FMC has an identical twin. So I'm like, yeah, hell yes. Okay, because this identical twin is, like, on the run, like, getting into loads of shit all the time. Like, drug addict, felon, in and out of jail, changing identities, like, thousands of passports, like, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. Like, it's going to be, like, a mistaken identity situation. It's going to be fantastic. Nope. This book fell so flat for me. I seriously had to push myself to finish it. The plot twist was like, okay, fine. The only reason I pushed through is because, 1, it took place in my hometown, which I thought was really fun, because I was like, oh my god, I know where that is. And 2, because it was 200 pages. So I was like, okay, just push through. So I gave this a 2 stars, and I would not recommend it. Now let's get into fantasy. Okay, so I literally, like, on January 1st at 2 in the morning finished Zodiac Academy 8, 8.5, and then Savage Fae, which is book 2 of the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac series. I'm not going to go into detail on those because I kind of already did in, like, my December wraps, because I just included them in that. You know I'm going to count that towards my 150 books this year, bitch. Like, are you kidding? What we are going to talk about is a very popular fantasy book, which is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I would give you a plot summary, but I don't know how to explain what this plot was. I was very confused most of the time. I did listen to the audiobook, so Maybe that had something to do with it, but I also think it made my experience like way less enjoyable. I thought the FMC was cringe as hell. Okay, I hated the MMC. I was confused the whole time. Like, the best part about this book was Carry On Swift. Point blank period. It didn't get good or even like engaging until like 90% of the way through, and then the ending was very interesting and like very engaging. But Bookish Jonna, one of my favorite creators, he was like, hey, if the rest of the book is bad up until the very last parts of it, it's probably a bad book. And I was like, damn, you got me there. So yeah, I did not like this book. I gave it a 2.5. The only reason I made myself finish it, because it is pretty long, I was like kind of intrigued by the love story, so I was like, fine, I'll stick around for that. Like, because people rave about Kingfisher, guys. They rave about him, and I was like, oh my god, he's not doing it for me. And then I did a reread of Iron Flame ahead of Onyx Storm. I loved it just as much as the first time. I feel like the Empyrean series is very much turning from like ACOTAR, which was more romance centric, to like Throne of Glass, which was more fantasy centric, and I'm eating that shit up, dude. I loved Iron Flame as much the second time. It made me even more excited to go into book 3, and baby, Onyx Storm delivered. Oh yeah, Onyx Storm delivered. I loved it. I loved every part of it. I was very confused at the beginning. Like, I really didn't know what was happening. I was like everybody else on the internet, where I was like, who is this person? Who is this person? Where are we? Why are we doing this? But it all came together, and I just thought it was fantastic. I thought the storytelling was so good. I didn't think it was too long. I didn't think it was repetitive. I just loved it. And again, I don't know how to give a plot summary without, like, 1, spoiling it, and 2, like, you just need to read the series, because this is book 3 that I'm talking about. Okay, and then the last book that we're going to talk about, I haven't finished yet, but I'm gonna finish it by the time that this probably goes live. Zodiac Academy Restless Star is the last book in the Zodiac Academy series. I can't believe this journey is over. Like, the thought of rating the bitch boys for the very last time, oh, it's crazy and so deeply sad. I am so attached to this series in a way that's probably unhealthy. Here's what I'm gonna say about Zodiac Academy. I kind of want to do a more in-depth video about Zodiac Academy because I was so intimidated to start it, and I know that other people probably are too. Zodiac Academy is one of those books that you're not reading because it's the best thing you've ever read. You're reading because the plot is fucking incredible, and I don't care what anyone says. Everything about the plot is incredible. The characters are crazy, so good, all of them. The world building is insane. The plot, like the war plot, is crazy. The magic system is amazing. It's like a bad CW show, but in a good way. Like season 1 Riverdale. We all loved season 1 Riverdale. It was cringy, sure, but it was damn good. That's how I feel about Zodiac Academy. Now, she's thick, but she's so worth it. I'm going to do a separate video when I finish that book because I've wasted so much of I have gladly spent and devoted so much of my life to reading that series. So I feel like I need something more like final when I finally do finish it. But yeah, that's all the reading that I did this month. So much. If there's anything that people want me to expand on, I would love to do a video about the Empyrean series, like how to get into that, summaries of the books, theories, things like that. I think that'd be really fun. I'm also going to do a Throne of Glass reread this year, and I think I'm going to vlog that. So that's going to be really fun. But yeah, guys, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to yap even more, and we'll see how this goes.